The other day, I was looking through my GameCube games, remembering days where all I had to worry about was if I could get away with doing my homework last minute, and how to beat Lord Crump. It got me all nostalgic, and so I took a look through my games and realized my sister took a lot of the good ones when she moved out. Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Sunshine? How do you take a man's Sunshine? She even took Paper Mario, which is a game our aunt got me for Christmas. I mean, we shared a lot of games, but that one was definitively mine. Now, if I wanted those games back, I could either take them back from her or buy other copies, I guess. I mean, how much does Paper Mario go for anyways? Let's see, $100? $100? That game is 18 years old. It could vote. As it turns out, GameCube nostalgia has hit the market rather hard in the past couple of years. I guess the pandemic and all the lockdowns made everyone long for simpler times. If you check out Pricecharting.com, they have a graph which shows the average loose price for all licensed non-variant games for GameCube over the past few years. And all you really need to know about that is that the prices start to jump up significantly sometime in 2020. By then, the GameCube was about 19 years old, and anyone who grew up playing this console now has a job and some disposable income to buy all the games they never got the chance to play as a kid. As well as all the time in the world to play them too, cause, you know, lockdowns and stuff around then. It was the perfect nostalgia storm, really. And maybe it's the flippers, the resellers, the collectors, but prices still haven't really come back down. I wanted to take a look at the rarest and most expensive GameCube games just to see if they're actually worth anyone's time and money. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll play the rarest and most expensive GameCube games using the listings on Pricecharting.com as a reference, and see if they're any good. All prices given will be listed in USD, so bear that in mind. And maybe some of these games are worth buying just the disc if you really only want to play the game, whereas others should probably be burned and cast into the pits of hell. Now before you say anything, yes, I am keenly aware that emulation exists and you can play all these games whenever you like, but I'm not really going to factor that in when I judge a game's value, since that kind of feels like cheating. Let me explain a little bit about price charting. It's a website that tracks the current listings and historic prices that games are sold for on sites such as eBay. It also keeps track of the individual price of a loose disc, the complete in-box price, which would include the box and manual as well as the game, as well as a brand new copy. It keeps track of the frequency of these sales, as well as a graph that shows how the price of the game has changed over time. You'll notice one very common thing is that these prices make a significant jump within the past couple years. There's no telling when or if these prices will jump back down, so we'll just take it as it is. We'll also be focusing on the North American versions of games, since for the most part, those are the more expensive ones. Now before we get started, I also have to clarify which games are allowed to be on this list. If, for example, many of the rarest GameCube games are actually multi-pack games like the Sonic Adventure 2-pack, or the Super Monkey Ball Double Pack, or even the illustrious Sonic Heroes and Super Monkey Ball Double Pack, which happens to sell for a ridiculous amount of money. At the end of the day, these games aren't too rare if you broke them up and sold them individually, and so these games don't really count. And then you have demo discs, which always become kind of rare. In this case, we have the interactive multi-game demo disc version 14, which is the rarest of GameCube demo discs. This included 3 playable single-player demos of Custom Robo, Mario Kart Double Dash, and Sonic Heroes. And of course, you have the bonus disc for Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon Box. The bonus disc of Colosseum was just a bonus disc. It really just had trailers and a Jirachi, whereas Pokemon Box was a storage system. Kind of like how we have Pokemon Home now. Back in the day, they had Pokemon Box. I wouldn't consider either of those actual games, but they are stupid expensive if you wanted to buy a physical copy. With all that said and done, here are the rarest and most expensive GameCube games in no particular order. Everybody loves skating games, right? That's why every major brand needed their own skating game, like The Simpsons or Disney or SpongeBob at some point. Skateboarding is cool, edgy, all the kids are skateboarding and playing video games these days. What else do kids love? Why, cartoons, of course. So why don't we combine skateboarding, video games, and cartoons into one thing? At least that's how I think the board meeting for Go-Go Hypergrind went. Published by Atlas and released in 2003, this wacky game centers its story around a fairly unique concept, I guess. Apparently, certain animation studios in our world have access to the Toon World, and what they'll sometimes do is write scripts and storyboards, then hand those off to people so that all the casting and production can be done in the Toon World. I guess it's some Who Framed Roger Rabbit type of deal, maybe? Anyway, CGI is cutting into the profitability of traditional cell animation, so the Toon World, for whatever reason, turns to Spoomco Studios. Yes, that's Spoomco. You know, the people behind Ren and Stimpy and Ripping Friends. Why would the Toon World go to Spoonco of all studios? No one knows, but Spoonco shut down 2 years after this game came out, so I don't think this did them any favors. Anyways, the Toons wanted Spoonco to help produce an extreme skateboarding cartoon named Go Go Hypergrind, and all the playable characters are auditioning to be the star. You have the aptly named Decker, who looks fairly similar to a certain Tasmanian devil. Freddy's got his whole Frankenstein's robo-monster shtick going on. Benny's a sexy cat, I guess, that really knows how to rail. Bob. A whole bunch of zany cartoon characters, each with an equal chance of becoming great stars.
By the way, I am a professional toon actor, you know. Here, give me a board, I'll show you a thing or two. It is monkey time!
Oh, Louise! Would somebody take him back to the jungle?
What'd you say?
Yeah, maybe some of these characters didn't age well. And then there's Kevin, the casting agent or skateboarding coach or something.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin.
What the hell is this? His face just unsettles me. I see it everywhere. In my dreams, it's on my skateboard. There's even a loading screen minigame where you play as him and try to land on a target. But yes, this is a skating game, and while you do have other modes to play with just friends, the story mode is where you unlock all the goodies. The game is divided into acts, with each act taking place on a new level. Things are further divided into rounds, with each round having a different objective, like get the highest score or perform the most reactions. Actually, that's the gimmick with this game. It's full of gimmicks. They take the slapstick cartoon theme and apply it to the gameplay by letting you perform special stunts they call gimmicks. All you have to do is push the X button when close to one of these objects and watch as your character gets squashed, flattened, smashed, exploded, chopped, and launched into the stratosphere by the giant boobs of a billboard. Okay, I see where Spoonco comes into play now. Now this is still a competition, so your performance in each round affects your position in the rankings, as well as the money you receive, which can be used to buy better boards or different designs. Honestly, I had a lot of fun with this game. It's not the most robust skating game of its time, but it has many unique interactions and secrets to discover. As for its rarity, well, it received mixed reviews, some positive, others negative, as well as the fact that, wait, it was only released in North America? That's just bizarre. I mean, it was developed in Japan. It even has its own anime opening thingy. Well, I mean, it wasn't a super popular title, and it was only released in one region, so that's pretty much as rare as it gets. Just the disc alone is going to cost you about $200. Complete set will run $500, and brand new is going to set you back $840. Is it worth playing? I'd say it is. I mean, I had fun with it. It's a decently unique skateboarding game, and if you grew up watching Spoonco cartoons, this might tickle that nostalgia bone a little. Is it worth $200 for the disc? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, this was such a weird and unique game, I feel like it should have some value, I guess. I mean, if it was $200 for the complete set, I might have picked up a copy myself. Genius Sonority is a studio whose original purpose was to develop Pokemon games for the home console. They've released a few Pokemon games in their day, such as Pokemon Cafe Mix, Pokemon Shuffle, Pokemon Battle Revolution, as well as a few others. But it all started on the GameCube with Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, with the latter being the more rare of the two, so we'll talk about that one. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness released in the latter half of 2005 as a sequel to Pokemon Coliseum. The game takes place 5 years after the first one, and as you're playing as a new character. The game involves the existence of shadow Pokemon, Pokemon that have had their hearts artificially closed and were introduced in the previous game. Turns out that the criminal organization responsible for creating shadow Pokemon, Team Cypher, have returned to wreak havoc once again. Your character is for some reason entrusted with the Snag Machine, a device used to steal Pokemon from other trainers, though its purpose is only to be used on Shadow Pokemon. Professor Crane, who gives you the Snag Machine and is developing a way to purify Shadow Pokemon, gets kidnapped, and it falls onto you to rescue him, purify all the Shadow Pokemon, and shut down Team Cypher. Apparently everyone in the Pokemon universe peaks at age 10. Anyways, the game has a pretty strong start. We get to see Shadow Lugia kidnap a boat, then we're right into an intense battle with Salamence versus Metagross. Only this is just a virtual battle, and we don't have a cool Salamence on our team. The game then grinds down to a halt as you slog through text boxes of boring dialogue and get acquainted with each character. Maybe I'm just getting too old and impatient, but I just want to battle and explore stuff, you know? And this Pokemon game plays more like a typical JRPG with more of a narrative focus. Though in terms of battles, it's pretty much what you'd expect of Pokemon. The only major change would be Shadow Pokemon, I guess. Shadow Pokemon don't level up, so honestly I have no idea why Team Cypher wants to make them so bad, other than Shadow Lugia looking pretty cool, I guess. You can carry the Pokemon around and battle with them to purify it, just like in Colosseum, or you can use the Purification Chamber to help with the process. There are modes in this game that you can play, where you just battle against friends, or trade Pokemon between the main series games if that's your thing. Pokemon XD is probably rare for a few reasons. It released towards the end of the GameCube's life cycle, and received mixed to positive reviews. And most criticisms seem to address the fact that it doesn't stand up to most other console RPGs, and recycles a lot of material from its predecessor. And that's another thing too. Pokemon Colosseum just seems like it was a better game. To me at least. I mean, that was the one I spent the most time playing as a kid, so I'm definitely more biased towards it, but Colosseum seemed to have a more original concept for its story, and was received better by critics. XD just kinda seems like a half-baked rehash. Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh, but still. Both games were considered a commercial success and sold pretty well, but they are fairly unique Pokemon titles, sought after by fans and collectors alike, so that could help explain the rarity. A loose disc runs for around $139, the complete box is going to go for about $186, while a brand new copy is going to cost $703. Is it worth playing? Yeah, I mean, personally I enjoy Colosseum more, but both are pretty unique Pokemon RPGs. Is it worth $139 for a disc? Well, the complete box isn't much more expensive, so if you really want, I'd say go for that. But maybe if you just wanted to play the game and transfer some Pokemon from here to more recent Pokemon games, that could actually be a pretty fun thing to do. And the price of the disc itself is high, but it's not absurdly high, you know? I have a vivid memory of walking into my local Blockbuster and renting a game that was so seemingly strange and bizarre that the whole experience kind of felt like a fever dream. I mean, Blockbuster itself feels like a fever dream at this point. But the game in question turned out to be Ribbit King, and when I saw this game again, I was hit with waves of nostalgia. Released in 2003 and published by Bandai, Ribbit King is a game based on the sport of kings. Frolf. What's that? You don't know Frolf? I think there are other questions that take priority here, like what the hell are these things? I mean, come on, it's Frolf. You know, it's like golf, but with frogs. Frolf. There's a versus mode to play with friends and a story mode. The story mode has you playing as Scooter, who's tasked with obtaining Super Ribbonite. His Super Ribbonite is an energy source that his planet relies on, and as it turns out, they're almost out of juice, and about to die. So for some reason, playing Frolf is the only way to obtain Super Ribbonite, or something, I guess. I mean, nobody cares, we just want to play Frolf. But along the way, you get to meet a whole cast of other crazy characters, like Sentient Picnic Basket, and this guy that just shows up out of literally nowhere.
He's a weirdo.
At least I'm not a picnic basket.
Huh?
And Caveman Panda?
I know kung fu. We're playing Frolf, aren't we?
At least Scooter has his priorities straight. Trust me, these are some of the least wacky characters here too. The North American version actually came with a bonus disc that had a bunch of short animations you could unlock. As I understand, these shorts originally aired in Japan as part of some kids show called Oha Suta to help promote the game. And some of these are really cute actually. There's 30 shorts in total, but 3 were dropped from the North American release with no clear reason as to why. The objective of Frolf is to get your frog to land in the goal. You do this by catapulting them through the air. In stark contrast to golf, in Frolf you want to have the most points possible. After you launch your frog, it can collect points by touching bubbles or interacting with the environment in various ways. Your frog may jump up to eat a fly, or spring off of a spider web. You can chain things like this together to create combos to gain a massive amount of points. Your frog may travel way further than you intended it to as well. It has you thinking more tactically about what combo you might be able to pull off to get your frog further, rather than just trying to send it as far as you can. Although some of these interactions just kinda do feel like random chance at times, so there's no real way to predict everything. Each course also has hazards which you can use to your advantage if your timing is good enough. Otherwise, you just end up losing points from these. You do want to make it into the goal as soon as possible though, since it's worth a ton of points and the amount that the goal is worth diminishes over time, especially if another player has already made it into the goal. This means that obtaining a high score involves chaining combos together and making your way to the goal faster than your opponent. To aid in this, you can also obtain items that can give you a boost or heal your frog. Your frog's condition can change for the better or worse depending on what they've been through, and this affects how far you can launch your frog. As for this game's rarity, it's kinda hard to say. It was released on the GameCube as well as the PS2, with the GameCube version being significantly more rare, and possibly because the PS2 sold more systems, so they produced more copies there instead of the GameCube. Then there's the fact that it was met with the mixed reviews upon release, most of which criticizing the game's lack of depth. Look, I'm gonna be honest here, I really like Rivet King, but at the end of the day, it is just a party game. The gameplay doesn't evolve that much, and the bizarre narrative isn't enough to keep you hooked on playing this game for hours at a time. Taken in small doses, or played with friends, Rivet King is an amazing game. Now this game is actually the only one on this list that was released for 2 platforms, those being GameCube and PS2. So I'll go ahead and list both prices so you can get a better idea of what we're looking at here. GameCube and PS2 discs retail for $128 and $36 respectively. Complete boxes go for $247 for the GameCube and $63 for the PS2. And a new GameCube box will cost you $537, whereas a new PS2 copy is going to be $124. Is it worth playing? Yeah, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. Is it worth picking up a GameCube copy? Only if you desperately need to have it on a Nintendo system, otherwise the PS2 prices are far more reasonable. Originally a Dreamcast title, Skies of Arcadia Legends was a port of the game to the GameCube. Released in 2002, just 2 years after the original, Legends features performance improvements such as slightly more detailed character models, a more stable frame rate, reduced loading times, as well as new content, and small quality of life improvements such as fewer random encounters and an experience boost to compensate. The story follows Vice, a member of the Blue Rogues, a faction of air pirates, and just so happens to be the son of their captain. Now there's 2 different types of air pirates. You have the good air pirates, which steal from people, and the bad air pirates that also steal from people. But the good air pirates also occasionally help people, so they're cool. And Vice is one of those. The Blue Rogues oppose the tyrannical Valuan Empire, and the Empress is seeking moon crystals to help in her plan for world domination. A young girl named Fina is a member of an ancient civilization and is sent to find the moon crystals before the Empress can get her hands on them. Seeing the Empire as a common enemy, Vice and Aika, I haven't really introduced Aika yet, but she's Vice's childhood friend. Anyways, they agree to help Fina in her mission and set out in search of the moon crystals. It's a typical JRPG with random encounters and the like, but I have to be honest with you, this is the one game on this list that I've probably seen the least of here. Every other game on this list was either short enough to beat or see everything in a few hours, or I had some prior experience playing the game and just had to record some footage. This one's a bit different here. The first time I saw this game was when a friend of my sister's came over and she brought a memory card along with this game. She was stuck on some ship battle boss fight thing, and I just kind of watched from a distance. I was always intrigued by Skies of Arcadia and have wanted to play through it for years, but I just haven't had the desire to set aside time for it recently. JRPGs just feel kind of harder to get into when you're older, at least for me. I played the game for a few hours, but it's at least a 45-hour game according to how long to beat, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. I really dig the Sky Pirate aesthetic, as well as the idea of rebelling against the tyrannical empire, so I think I'd enjoy the story. I just don't know if the combat is entertaining enough or if the frequent random encounters will drive me insane. If you've got experience playing this game, let me know about it. Leave a comment, convince me to sit down and play through the whole thing. Or avoid it like the plague, I don't know, maybe you hated it. Its rarity feels like it never needed to happen though. Apparently they were porting the game to both PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, but they canceled the PS2 version to focus on the GameCube port. If they had to port it to one system, GameCube was a weird choice, maybe? I mean, on the one hand, the PS2 had a much bigger market, way more people had PS2s, and on the other hand, there was almost an oversaturation of RPGs on the PS2, so the game might not stick out as much over there. Either way, years later they had plans to port the game to PC, but that also fell through, so now all we have is the GameCube version. A loose disc goes for about $130, while the complete box is going to be just about $200. A brand new copy will cost $429. Most people seem to think it's worth playing if you're a fan of RPGs. It's probably one of the greatest RPGs for the GameCube, even if that's only because of the lack of competition with games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest releasing on PlayStation. But is it worth at least $130 to get the disc? Probably not, but at least it's a somewhat lengthy adventure that might be more worth your time than others. This game was first released on the GBA, but we aren't here to talk about that one. The GameCube version of Disney Sports Basketball released a few months afterwards in January of 2003. Published by Konami, it's all right in the title. It's a Disney sports game, specifically basketball. They also had football, skateboarding, and soccer, if you care. It's a typical game of 3-on-3, featuring an assortment of characters from the Mickey Mouse Disney lineup. Your other two teammates are actually just some fill-in schmucks. Like if you pick Mickey Mouse, for example, your team name is Superstars, and you have these random like cat-looking guys, I guess. They even brought in C-list Mickey Mouse villain Mortimer for this game.
Cha-cha-cha!
The only characters that come as an iconic trio are Huey, Dewey, and Louie, so that just makes them the best pick by default. I don't think there's any deep interconnected story going on behind the scenes here. It's just basketball. And it's not the greatest basketball game either. I haven't exactly played a whole bunch of basketball games in my day, but I have played a few. And this is just bad. It feels like it wants to be a party game without fully committing to that, and everything else just kind of suffers for it. Ball control is too basic, everything feels boring and repetitive, and all they really added were these super shots. Don't even get me started on the announcer guy. For whatever reason, with the announcer guy, they just decided to pre-record some basic statements and fill in the blanks with other lines. And it's painfully obvious.
Let's hit the floor and get ready for the player introduction.
The Tiny Rockets!
Huey, Dewey, Louie,
The Sea Ducks!
Donald,
Keith,
Calvin.
The Sea Ducks!
Are today's big winners. Thanks, guys. Congratulations.
The Tiny Rockets!
47,
The Sea Ducks!
89. This intense matchup ends with a win for
The Sea Ducks!
Electra Dunk. Next in made. That was great.
Inbound going to the Tiny Rocket.
Dewey gets ready to take the shot. Dewey shoots.
Every time he says Dewey, I want to punch someone. Now, I did play a lot of NBA Street for the GameCube because they had Mario in it, and I also played a lot of NBA Jam as well. I think the only other basketball game I spent any significant amount of time in would have been Mario Hoops 3-on-3 for the DS, and every single one of those games is infinitely better than this. Especially NBA Street. That game, just, oh man, awesome. Disney Sports Basketball, by comparison, is just an unremarkable basketball game with Mickey and friends. But maybe I'm being too harsh. I mean, all the other critic reviews are pretty negative, but apparently there are some fans who really like this game. There has to be some reason for that, right? Eric over here even gave the game a 10 out of 10, so let's see what he has to say. Basketball is my favorite sport. NBA Street sucked and I hated NBA Jam. Disney games are fun. I bought football and I intend to buy this game also. Eric didn't even buy the game. And he gave it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it must be one amazing game then. You don't even have to play it to love what they got going on here. Now, this game is rare for one reason. Everyone else thought it was bad. Eric is probably the only person that saw its true potential. But because people thought it was bad, it didn't sell well, and they didn't manufacture a whole lot of copies, and thus a crappy game, an amazing game, according to Eric, becomes rare and gains value. How much value? But that's actually the weird part, because the loose disc is only going to cost about $173. Super cheap, right, for a game this amazing? But the complete box jumps up significantly to $552. Why is the box and manual so much more money? And brand new is going to cost $787. But look, I'm pretty sure that Eric will more than vouch for its quality and value, so don't even take my word for it. Just go buy the game now. Any price is more than worth it for this amazing game. The first Fire Emblem game to be released on a home console since the SNES days, as well as the first home console Fire Emblem in general outside of Japan. Now, this hit the market in 2005, towards the end of the GameCube's life cycle, with the Wii releasing the following year. Super Smash Bros. Melee had paved the way for Fire Emblem to hit the international market, but it was still a fairly niche series back then. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is, well, it's pretty much just a Fire Emblem game. A tactical role-playing game with a medieval fantasy setting in which you usually rise up against an evil invading force by building an army and constructing elaborate strategies to outsmart your opponents. But this was the first Fire Emblem game ever to feature 3D graphics, which was a bit divisive for some fans given that the GBA sprite animations were so over the top and cool, whereas this was just 3D. And we also did get voice acting, in some cutscenes at least, but most importantly, we got Ike. I like Ike. The story follows Ike as he joins his father's mercenary company. Shortly after this, the mercenary group takes on a job to escort a young princess to an allied nation following the invasion of her kingdom. The plot continues from there as Ike takes over as leader of the mercenary company and is forced to prove himself capable. You control your units on a grid-like system with terrain having an impact on certain stats. Different types of units have different strengths and weaknesses. Pegasus Knights have incredible mobility, being able to fly through the air, and they aren't really affected by terrain. But this comes at the cost of being weak to bows. The game also introduced the Lagoos, a species of half-human, half-beast-like people that were able to transform into powerful creatures, which sometimes made up for the fact that their human forms were completely useless. Path of Radiance also introduced a base screen and a battle prep screen, which allows you to organize inventories, purchase new equipment, distribute bonus experience, and view support conversations. The support system was taking some steps in the right direction, but it wasn't yet quite as robust as it is in newer Fire Emblem titles, which is a shame because the support conversations are the only place where certain characters really get a chance to shine and develop as, well, characters. And there's plenty of interesting people in this game. And top that off with the fact that this Fire Emblem was one of the only ones to receive a direct sequel, with Radiant Dawn releasing just 2 years later, and all that did was dilute the character roster even more, leaving even more interesting characters in the dust. It's just a shame that the support system wasn't more fleshed out here. Now this game may be missing some of the luxuries of modern Fire Emblems, such as a casual mode or some sort of undo mechanic, but I do think that this one is one of the better crafted Fire Emblem games, and it's one of my favorites. Despite its mostly positive critical reception, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is actually one of the lowest selling entries in the franchise, which probably explains its rarity. Just the disc is going to set you back about $210. A complete box is going to cost you about $300. And of course, brand new is going to be much more at $518. Is it worth playing? Well, if you're just looking to get into Fire Emblem, there are some more beginner-friendly games to start with. But otherwise, I mean, if you're already a fan of the franchise, I'd say yeah, this is one of my favorites throughout the series. Is it worth paying at least $210 to play the disc? Nah. Honestly, I think it's about time that both this game and Radiant Dawn got some modern remakes. Developed by Bandai and Skip, published by Nintendo, and released in 2005, Chibi Roomba was a 3D platforming adventure game with a lot of charm. I remember dreaming of getting to play this game as a kid. I would always see it on the shelf or watch someone play the demo in the store. I never got to play that demo for some reason. Maybe it was too busy or just wasn't up for very long. Instead, all I could do was read my Nintendo Power magazine and imagine what playing the game would be like. But not anymore. After all these years, I finally got to play Chibi Roomba, and it is, well, it kind of makes me sad. Not because the game is bad, I actually think it's a lot of fun, but I just know I would have absolutely loved this game if I played it as a kid. The story centers itself around a family that is celebrating their daughter's birthday, and the father decided to splurge a little this year, getting one of those gifts that's supposedly for the kid, but is really something he wanted too, like that one time my dad got me a DVD player. I didn't even have any DVDs. In this case, the gift was a Chibi Roomba, a brand new toy? Servant? I don't actually know what kind of product Chibi Roomba would be classed as. It's like a mix between that AI robot thingy and a Roomba. As it turns out, Chibi Roomba's entire purpose is to make people happy. So then what the hell was this? The game starts off with presenting you the grand illusion of choice, before you realize that you were literally sold as a product with the one goal of making people happy. Now, I won't lie, there's a cute charm in the whole making people happy thing. You go around talking with characters, cleaning up messes, and giving people gifts to make them happy. And this applies to toys as well, since this world follows that Toy Story logic of toys coming to life when people can't see them. Chibi Roomba itself is in a weird middle ground since it's not a person, or a toy, and can be part of both worlds. As you make people happy, you gain happy points and money. Money can be used to buy upgrades like this cool blaster, and happy points raise your rankings in the leaderboards as you make your way towards that #1 spot. If you can get to #1, you'll supposedly be upgraded to the luxurious Super Chibi Roomba. But every major milestone until then gives you battery capacity upgrades at least. Speaking of battery capacity, Chibi Roomba carries that plug around for a reason, you know? All that running around and using special moves takes its toll, and you'll need to plug in if you want to charge up or save your game. As you continue to play, you'll meet new characters, obtain new abilities, and find new ways to make people happy. It's all so heartwarming and endearing, really, and characters seem to develop in more complex and interesting ways than you might think. And that charm takes itself to other aspects of the game as well. Every step you make carries its own musical note, and that note changes depending on the surface you're walking on. Even something as mundane as cleaning the floor feels so relaxing here. Discovering new areas and characters is a lot of fun, and I can understand why so many people seem to enjoy this game. it's become a rarity, probably due to its modest sales and late release into the GameCube's lifecycle. I did say that the game released in 2005, but that was for Japan. Chibi Roomba released in North America and Europe the same year that the Nintendo Wii came out. It did go on to spawn a few sequels though, and apparently it did also see a re-release for the Wii in 2009 with new controls designed to make use of the Wiimote, but again only for Japan. A loose disc will run for $164, the complete box is about $230, and a brand new copy goes for $465. Is it worth playing? Yep. This game has a lot of charm and it's actually pretty fun. Is it worth paying $164 for a disc? I mean, no, not really. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth with how cheap other regions can buy the game for, and we have to pay a premium here. I wouldn't mind a Switch remaster of this game though. Even if they charged full price, which they shouldn't, it would still be cheaper than buying these secondhand copies. Released in 2003 and published by Capcom, Gacha Force is an arena fighter centered around toys. The story is essentially your typical Yu-Gi-Oh!, Bakugan, Pokemon, Digimon, Metabots, Mega Man.exe, Zoids, Beyblade. Trust me, I can keep naming these. What I'm trying to say is it's your typical anime shoved out the door to peddle kids' toys. Gacha Force even has its own anime-esque opening, featuring all the trope characters like generic spiky-haired protagonist, girl, and edgy rival, as well as the mandatory have all the main characters run towards something scene that all anime openings have. So what's the story really about? Here, I'll let the game tell you.
The day after a meteorite fell towards Safari Town, a boy went in search of it, hoping to find an adventure. What he found was a palm-sized robot that has a mind of its own. The little machine was also a life form known as a Gotchaborg from the planet Megaborg.
I am so sorry, but I just needed you to hear how terrible the voice acting is for practically every character.
I wasn't really trying.
Oh, I can tell you weren't trying, Jimbo. Now get back in that recording booth and do it right this time, or we're skipping your birthday again this year. It's just so bad. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it's not like all those other anime I mentioned earlier have the greatest voice acting either, but man, this is just a whole other level of bad. Anyways, generic anime protagonist, or whatever you name them, finds a tiny robot known as a Gotchaborg from the planet Megaborg. Yeah, this game makes me want a Megaborg already. Anime protagonist teams up with G-Red to stop the Death Force from invading Earth, or something, I guess. I mean, if the Earth is being invaded by an enemy species that are about the size of children's toys, I don't think we really have all that much to worry about. That's as far as the plot goes, really. Team up and stop the bad guys from being bad. It's obviously meant to appeal to children and maybe sell their toy line or something. Of course, they did have toys and even a manga, but both only ever made it to the Japanese market, at least according to Wikipedia, because I can't really find anything on the manga myself. And I have heard rumors of a pilot episode of an anime that may have existed at some point, but again, can't find anything on that either. The gameplay is super basic. You and the enemy fight in a small arena surrounded by normal-sized human objects that really emphasize the toy-like nature of the Gotchaborgs. You auto-lock onto your enemy and use the B and Y buttons to unleash various attacks. The B button will also perform melee attacks at close range. But guess what? This game has a gacha mechanic. Who would have thunk it, right? You can get new Gotchaborgs and add them to your Gacha Force, but each Gotchaborg has a Gacha point cost, so you gotta battle more Gotchaborgs to get Gacha Force energy to recruit Gotchaborgs to the Gacha Force. It all makes sense now. One could say I got it. Look, once you've played for like an hour, you've already seen anything of value that this game has to offer. And now there's nothing wrong with a game like Gacha Force existing. I probably would have loved this game as a kid. You can even trade Gotchaborgs with friends if you put both memory cards into your GameCube. And that's super cool for the two people who use that feature. Kid me would have dreamed of having friends to play Gacha Force with. He wouldn't get any, but he would dream. Gacha Force is super rare now because, well, I mean, its reception was rather mediocre. I don't think they bothered advertising it much. I mean, did you ever hear of Gacha Force back in the day? And it wasn't exactly a commercial success. However, it does have a small cult following, and all of that combined means getting your hands on a copy of Gacha Force is gonna cost you, pal. Specifically, you'll be paying $377 for just the loose disc, $734 for complete in-box, and a whopping $2,129 for a brand new copy. Editor's note: you might notice that the prices are a little inaccurate, but that's because they changed on me like 3 or 4 times during my recording. Is it worth playing? Not unless you're taking a trip down memory lane. Is it worth at least $377 just for the disc? And not unless you just won the gotcha lottery. Development for Cubivore started on the N64, specifically for the 64DD peripheral, which never left Japan. Eventually, it migrated to being a GameCube title, releasing in February of 2002. Originally released in Japan as Animal Leader, the game was met with mixed reviews and less than favorable sales. Due to all this, Nintendo stated they had no intentions to release the game outside Japan. Atlus then picked up Animal Leader, renaming it to Cubivore, and localized it for the North American market, releasing in November of that same year. The story tells a tale of a world once filled with wilderness, that colorful beasts roamed around freely. That is, of course, until the colorless beasts arrived and devoured that wilderness, causing the world to slowly die. And just like that, you are born. You play as Piggy, and set out to grow and devour things. Yeah, that's pretty much it. No grand heroic motivation to save the world, you just want to survive and thrive, baby. You hold the L button to lock onto things and then push A to pounce. Other than that, you mostly just wander around and continue to eat things while accompanied by a beautiful piano soundtrack. When you eat another creature, you can mutate based on its color, which will change your abilities. The squares attached to your cube body are limbs, and each mutation changes the location of your limbs. But true evolution takes place over generations, and the only way to achieve this is through mating. At certain points, you'll find mating grounds you can enter. The amount of mutations you've undergone will affect the amount of females willing to mate with you. Wait, has it always been that easy? Hold on, I gotta go update my dating profile. After mating, you can choose an offspring to continue playing as. What happens to the old Piggy? Well, he was born maybe about a day and a half ago, devoured a bunch of animals, nearly mastered the art of language, had a threesome, and died. So he's done more in less than 2 days than I have in over 20 years. He even broke the fourth wall. I mean, he just straight up told me that he heard in the next level he could meet a female. He also said he had a fat tip, which I really didn't need to know, but at least he understood innuendos. After choosing an offspring, you can easily mutate into their shape in case you end up mutating into something else you don't like. That's pretty much the game right there. You eat things and mutate and mate and repeat the cycle. New limbs, fangs, there's a bunch of mutations to go through, but honestly, I feel like the gameplay doesn't evolve too much throughout the course of the game. Cubivore is a game you mostly play for its weird yet captivating charm. You want to see what mutations will happen next, or how many females you get to mate with. As for its rarity, well, like I said, Nintendo didn't see any reason to release the game outside Japan because it didn't do well, so Atlus did it for them, and I still don't think it sold very well. Plus, they only brought it to North America. I find it really funny that the Japanese and North American versions are worth such incredibly different amounts. The Japanese disc, $17.99. The North American disc, $329. $649 for the complete box, and $1,883 for a brand new copy. This game is insanely rare, thus it's insanely expensive. Is it worth playing? Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it has a weird yet captivating charm that makes you want to play through and see what happens next. Is it worth $326 just to get your hands on a disc? Yes. And that, my friends, were 9 of the rarest and most expensive GameCube games. Why 9 and not 10? Well, I didn't actually go into this with a number in mind, and I just ended up at 9. Number 10 probably would have been Phantasy Star. I only ever played one Phantasy Star game. I think it was for a portable system like PSP or DS. Either way, let's recap all the games we did cover, shall we? Chibi Roomba is a lot of fun, and I wish I got to play this game as a kid. It's still enjoyable as an adult, though, and I definitely recommend playing it. Cubivore is just a strange and bizarre game that gets into your head like some kind of brain worm that says, play more Cubivore, and then makes you hungry, I guess. Honestly, if it weren't so odd and captivating, I don't even think it would be a good game. I played quite a bit, and the gameplay didn't evolve much, but I just kept wanting to play regardless. It's like watching Hypnotoad or something. Disney Sports Basketball is just a basic basketball game. There are better, cheaper basketball GameCube games to get your hands on, unless you're Eric, in which case this game is the perfect game, and you should buy it now. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance probably isn't the best Fire Emblem to start with, but if you're already a fan of the series, then this one is definitely worth playing, which also means you'll probably want to play Radiant Dawn afterwards. That game is also pretty rare, so good luck. Go-Go Hypergrind is actually a pretty fun skating game. My GameCube skating game of choice as a kid was Disney Extreme Skate Adventure. And then of course you had all the Tony Hawk games and stuff, and this one kind of got buried beneath it all. But I think it has some value. Maybe not that much value, but it's worth playing. Gacha Force is a fun concept, I guess. I mean, it's nothing new really, and the gameplay is kind of basic. I'd have enjoyed it as a kid, but I don't find much reason to play it now. Pokemon XD is still a pretty decent game. It's like, what if Pokemon were a more traditional JRPG with a narrative focus? And I think that's pretty cool. I always liked Coliseum better though. It's still worth playing for Pokemon fans, and maybe even worth buying if you want to transfer over Pokemon and stuff to recent games. Ribbit King is fun. I like Ribbit King. I don't have much else to say about it really. I like it. You should play it, maybe with some friends. But if you're gonna buy a copy, then the GameCube version is pretty overpriced, so maybe just get the PS2 one if you're gonna buy anything. And finally, Skies of Arcadia. The game I feel like I experienced the least of, and don't feel like my opinion matters here. I did play this game for quite a few hours though. It's actually the game I recorded the most footage of, but I had to delete a lot of it for storage. Overall, it seems to be a worthwhile play for JRPG fans, but I do wish we got those PS2 and PC ports, maybe in a different timeline. So in general, even though most of these games are fun, they're also pretty overpriced. If you've played these games, let me know what you think of them, and what you think of how much they're worth these days. Would you sell your prized childhood copy of Gotcha Force for over $700? Do you disagree with my opinions? Either way, I'd just like you to know that, as always, I appreciate you and everything you do. Ciao.